Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kishan Balaji. I'm your host, and welcome to this second episode of this second opinion. Today, we are going to look at our issues in more nuanced manner. We are looking at it from the lens of the law, and more importantly, what happened on July 20th. Because uh, now the development since our last episode, this week is going to be focused on judiciary. Now, for a quick recap, since our last episode, the Minister of Education, the former Minister of Education, Dharmendra Pradhan, finally resigned after a month long of protest across the country. He resigned on the grounds of moral responsibility. He claimed that in order to save the country from anti national forces taking advantage of the students' plight and problems, he wants to save the country, and in this heroic moral gesture, he has resigned. Uh, so says his resignation letter. Today, the parliament convened where he was hailed as a hero. Chants of Dharmendra Pradhan Zindabad was um, was echoing outside the footsteps of parliament. He was felicitated as well as a hero. Um, and that is the update. Also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, over the last 3 days, has posted three reels in a bid to connect to the youth of this country. It's quite the evolution. One might say even rage bait. So that is the second opinion. And now that we have a new education minister, Prahlad Joshi, it's only time to see what he does, if any reforms are brought. The government of India has also constituted a special task force headed by Nandan Nilekani to ensure that there is no further paper leaks. They've also brought in an anti-paper leak bill today, which was tabled on the floor of parliament. There was no discussion that has taken place, as the opposition is adamant on the home minister to appear on the floor of the parliament to take responsibility for this. Now, having gotten this big update out of the way, um, uh, our main focus today is on one thing, and that is the events that took place on July 20th. It was quite the horrific events and scenes that we saw. We witnessed the state's brute force on display on students. So the next question naturally arises: what are its legal implications? How what is the state's defense, and what protects the students who have had to uh, be on the Lathi end of this uh, peaceful protest. Now, joining us on this episode is Mr. Kamaksh. He is a practicing advocate in Delhi. Welcome to the Second Opinion.
Thank you, Kishan, for that introduction. And I think very rightly said by you. And I feel coming back to what you said, I feel the actions of the government that we've been seeing post the 20th July, that they have acted in a completely irresponsible way, yes. But I would suggest that parallels can be drawn with their reaction to such an event and what the police did. When I say parallels, I mean acting too late, acting irresponsibly, drawing people and drawing attention in towards a movement, letting people gather, and then suddenly dropping a bomb on them. And this the events that have taken place in the 20th, before 20th and after 20th, they firstly they don't hold any place, neither on humanitarian grounds nor on constitutional grounds. And I would like to take this and I would like to talk about this by giving a brief background and the build up to it and what was happening in Delhi before this incident took place. So as we know, the movement started. Mr. Sonam Wangchuki sat on the hunger strike, and the movement did not have as much traction at it had later on. I remember I had gone to the protest on 13th, and there was not much crowd. The security of the protest site was also taken care by the police. So what this means is that the police had been in charge of the security of the place since the beginning of the gathering at Jantar Mantar, and they had seen how the crowds had started to swell in till 20th, till the march happened, until the unfortunate incident that took place. A lot of people we have heard it all over the social media that they did not have the permission, they did not have the permission to do so. But before we come to that bit, before we come to the bit of them having the permission of not, they exercising their right under Article 19, they had gathered at Jantar Mantar. Now, this announcement that a march will be taking place was announced way before than the actual march had happened. Everybody knew that the march is going to happen. The police knew that the march is going to happen, and the police anticipated. In fact, the police knew how much crowd this is going to pull, how much traction this is going to get. One day before the 20th March, the police just claims that Section 163 of the BNSS has been imposed. 163, in simpler terms, means that once it is imposed in any district or any area of any particular city or a town, five or more people cannot gather. So the communication that had come was that for 20th, that is the date of the march, the New Delhi district, which is the central Delhi district, where we see all the Lathians, basically all the cream properties of Delhi in the central Delhi, that is the New Delhi district. So Section 163, which puts restriction on gathering of five or more people, was imposed on all of the New Delhi district, but the Jantar Mantar, except for that gathering spot in Jantar Mantar. But contrary to what people might think, 163 BNSS, which puts a restriction on people gathering, is not equal to Lathi being charged or tear gas being thrown. What that means is, if I have to elaborate on it a little bit, the power to disperse a force, or the power to sort of use force against any particular crowd, does not come from 163, it comes from 148. Now, what does 148 say? 148 say that whatever force the police has to use to make sure that people are not gathered, in terms of the order of 163A, that five and more people cannot gather, this has to be used responsibly, and it cannot be used to punish or retaliate on people. This is a very plain reading of the law. I'll tell you what the police did in practice. Police knew that the crowd is going to come. First, police let people in. They knew that the people are going to march. They put barricades and they let people in. Once the people were in, once the people started marching towards the Sansad Marg, they had blocked all exits of the barricade. So, in simpler terms, leaving law aside, what happened on that day was people were drawn in
and then shut out.
And then people were shut. And then when people were shut, they were beat, they were tear gassed, and there were people who were going around in circles and getting beat in circles. There were people who were getting beat by lathis. They used to leave one spot, they used to go to the other spot, because obviously they can't go towards the barricade because the Delhi police had made it into a fortress. Right? So people can't go out, people can't come in, and whoever is inside is getting either beat up or is getting tear gassed. And all of us have seen the horrific videos that have come out. Policemen have assaulted women. They have They have used the lathis in the most inappropriate ways one could think of. They were police people without their nameplates. They
Yes.
were police people in civilian uniforms. There is no way to verify them. They don't know that the facial recognition technology has not come to us. They have the facial recognition technology. We can't scan a person's face and be like, this is a police person or this is not a police person. Now, what is the procedure as per the courts that has to be followed in such a process, which has not been followed in such an example? I've just explained you what they did.
Correct. Correct.
The procedure based off the precedents, right? There's a very famous case of the Ram Leela Maidan. What had happened, Ram Leela Maidan, for context, is during the 2011 protest against the government, Baba Ramdev had sat, and he had sat with around 2,000 protesters. In the night, police comes and police starts to evacuate them, beat them, and remove them from the site,
Correct.
right? And it is at this time the case is filed and the police has intervened.
Hmm.
Now, what the police has said is very interesting, because the police has said that just because 163 is existing, or just because there is a prohibition of people gathering, that doesn't mean that force has to be used automatically.
Okay.
That okay, there is an order of 163 being imposed, five or more people cannot gather. So if you see a gathering, start beating them up. That is not the procedure. First of all, if the police is anticipating that there's going to be so much crowd, the police has to make sure that they have a plan of action of ensuring that there are exit routes.
Hmm.
They have to make sure that there is enough medical aid available as much as they can, practically can. Obviously, we don't expect them to
Hmm.
give medical aid to 1 crore people, but as much as they can,
Yeah.
right?
Understandably.
They have to make a declaration. They have to announce. They have to make an announcement that you are not supposed to gather here because of 163 being imposed, and now we will be forced to take measures. Now, coming back to what happened in Jantar Mantar, there was no announcement.
Hmm.
First of all, we still don't have what order was this 163 that has been represented everywhere.
Hmm.
As per section 163, the magistrate has to order that this is what the restrictions are going to be,
Hmm.
and these are the reasons and the ground for the restrictions that have to be there. And 163 is applicable once there is a very grave apprehension of a grave public harm, not some isolated incident of one protester throwing a stone, hitting a police head. So you just start now beating people up. You have to apprehend a huge
Yeah.
ruckus that will be created.
So, but if I
That order was, yes,
sorry,
sorry,
if I understand this correctly, uh,
right,
you need safe exit points. The exit points are blocked, and then
right,
you have undertaken a very specific. You've taken a very clear decision of taking a certain action. So, like a
correct,
policeman using maybe firing a tear gas into the crowd uh, is
right,
itself. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's illegal. You can't shoot a tear gas into the crowd. So,
right.
I mean, then of course you have chili bombs, and then I mean, no, not even
Pellet guns were also used. Pellet guns were also used.
pellet guns. I'm not even going to get into the nuances of pellet guns because it's very
Yeah,
clearly illegal. So,
right,
according to this very action itself, so when you have exit ways blocked, and such an action
right,
is being taken by the Delhi police, so it's a
right.
very clear order that this is the way we are going to do it. So it's evidently pre-planned.
Exactly.
So it can't be
Absolutely.
on the spur of the moment that we will do it right now. This is the way. So because I'm pretty sure there was one water cannon, despite knowing the scale of the crowds that were arriving. There was one water
What
cannon that was not even deployed.
water cannons were not deployed? What about the shields? Is your first reaction going to be to communicate to the crowd, announce This is not what this is not our personal opinion. This is what the Supreme Court, High Court. This has been repeated by the courts in various judgments. You have to announce first that a crowd has gathered. You cannot gather as per this provision. Second of all, you announce and tell them that this is the exit route. This is the exit route. This is the exit route. We're giving you the opportunity to leave. Even after that, even after that, if you're not able to disperse the crowd has to be dispersed not in a manner which the police has done. They have to be dispersed without without fearing their heads. They're bleeding. They have been beaten up. You did not use shields. You did not use water cannons. You did not take one step, or you did not take one course of precaution that you were supposed to take as Delhi police. You failed to do so. Their dis- Supreme Court in the Ramlila Maidan case has been very clear that even after you have given all these warnings, even after you have made sure that they have the exit to go, the water cannons have you whatever, like whatever that is, this force that you do end up using in the end to disperse the crowd, that force cannot be unjustifiable. And the Supreme Court has very categorically held this,
Mhm.
that the method that the police uses to disperse the crowd has to be the least harmful method.
Correct.
That is, I don't think anybody, forget about the people who were part of the protest, who went there, who experienced such a thing. Anybody who saw the videos, or anybody who has any idea of what happened, this was not the least harmful way taken by the Delhi police. In
No,
no way this was the least harmful way that was taken.
it's going to be remember. It's a blot on our democracy. Like the prime minister so fondly likes to remember the dark days of emergency. This will be right up there along the pages of emergency, because the images of women, children, students beating, and what are they doing? They have a book and rose in their hand. They're pleading, begging on. It's the most gut wrenching, most shameful thing to happen on the streets of our national capital, more than
It's,
anything. It's I mean,
I mean, the prime minister, give it to him. He's a person with great audacity. The way he's just now come and he started calling these people his friends, his friends. You didn't listen to your friends till the build up. You're
yeah,
waiting
after
for you
beating them up,
waiting.
after tear gassing them.
After beating them up, they were bleeding. 20, 21 year kids bleeding. There were siblings that had come. There were old people that had come, and such iso. See, I'm not saying that you let go of people which you have like completely you've caught on camera. Somebody who's doing very deliberate harm. Some protester is picked up stones. He's like whatever he's doing, but in the defense of taking actions against those isolated incidents, you cannot take the constitutional right of the other protesters to protest.
Absolutely.
What kind of an understanding that is? And it's just been shameful. It has been shameful that there's no other word for it.
Well, I mean, I think, I mean, one thing is very clear, and I think young protesters were being mercilessly thrashed by the Delhi police, and it's incredibly shameful. A government, I mean, it's very tough to come to terms with a government that treats its children, grandchildren, and the fact, like they're enemies, or like terrorists. Even people have explicitly called them terrorists. Okay, I mean, just to think about it, like corporal punishments in school is illegal. A school teacher can't hit or punish
Did you?
a student in the classroom. So this wonderful idea of your Viksit Bharat cannot be, especially with the Independence Day around the corner. You cannot be hoisting the flag, and this idea of Viksit Bharathon is broken bones and ribs of your children, and it's shameful. And
It's yeah,
it's
it's disgusting. And I think they had the confidence. And this is the most, I feel this is the most important point that has to be discussed is that what the damage that they have done to the society is to such an extent that they had the confidence, by the way. They were very confident that they can get away with this. They were extremely confident that they can do whatever they want to do and nothing is gonna happen. And it
which
is a very, yeah, you were saying.
no, so I mean, I think this point brings me to my question, that when the Delhi police has acted, has acted in such an illegal manner, it's safe to call it absolutely illegal. Does it,
Right,
what does it show and say about our judiciary? What does it
correct,
say? What does it say uh, about our legal system? Does that mean that there is absolutely no fear of the judiciary anymore? What does it, as a lawyer, seeing these events which are blatantly illegal, and
right,
seeing the court's reaction and the time taken to perhaps even hear the matter,
right.
what does that, I mean, what do you think about that? Like, what does that say about this?
So I would like to also clarify this so that everybody knows what has happened in the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court has today, it has it so there's a thing called mentioning in courts. What a mentioning is, let's say you have filed a matter before the Supreme Court, right? But filing a matter doesn't mean that you file it today, tomorrow it will be listed before the court. There's a whole process involved. The listing date comes in at a later stage. So you have an option in the interest of justice, or when there's a like a grave emergency that is there in your case, you can go to the court in the morning without your call, without your turn or anything. You can just request to the court that this is my matter. It is very urgent. Kindly list it. Today, the Supreme Court has, as after mentioning, it has agreed to list multiple PILs. PILs are basically public interest litigations, which were filed as a result of the Delhi police violence. And there were other PILs as well. For example, we have seen, all of us must have seen the video of the Bihar police and some person who has literally shot an AK-47 at the protesters. So all these PILs were mentioned in the morning, and now the honorable court has listed those matters. What happens in those matters is like is a different thing, but as of now, this is the case. What had happened earlier, when the CGI had his court is also there in everywhere, where he states that we don't have time for the videography, and then he gave his explanation that no matter was filed. What he meant was that when the matter had reached to him in court, then it was not by filing of a case. No case was filed, but a person had sent him a representation letter to act upon it, which the Chief Justice has a power. Suo motu cognizance the court can take. As per the suo motu cognizance, if they see, if something has come to the public knowledge and they see that it is something that possesses great danger to the constitution, or the public interest in general, so they can pick a case and bring it in front of them. And when that representation was made, I mean, see, there may be reasons to not let it get listed urgent. I don't know, but I'm sure that such a remark could not have been made, or should not have been made. That there's no time for the court to look at videos, because the videos that we have seen have been horrible. They have just been horrible, and the people, see, that is the issue. That is the issue that we are facing these days. That there is a lot of technicality that has to be dealt with, right? When a matter also reaches the court, it is not that on the first date of hearing the court is gonna just like let two people argue and then it's gonna go on. There's a process to it. Notice will be issued and things will come. But it's about it raises the question that if something like this happens, right? When when a lawyer like me can also not be confident if the Delhi police's actions are going to be dealt with in the way they should be, then I feel it is time for the judiciary to reflect, for sure. They do have to reflect that sometimes there are certain things that are larger than the mere formalities,
Hmm.
and they need immediate attention, and they need immediate response to it. And although the case has now reached the Supreme Court, there are also very interesting cases. There were also interesting petitions that were filed before the Delhi High Court.
Hmm.
For and Positively, the Delhi High Court has also ordered against a petition which was filed. So basically, this petitioner wanted NIA probe into the protest.
Hmm.
An NIA protest probe usually happens when there's a threat of the country's security, of terrorism, and this person wanted the judiciary to direct CBI to go and start investigating the protest, which thankfully and luckily the Delhi High Court has set aside and has not allowed to do so. But there are other very small similar petitions that are pending before the Delhi High Court. One very important is the use of facial recognition of
Yes.
police, and how to what extent they could do so. Because I don't know if the people, everybody, all the viewers who had, if they had come to the protest or not, but outside the protest, especially in Delhi, there's this huge truck of the Delhi police, and it had screens,
Hmm.
and there are multiple videos that can be seen where people's face were sort of pulled out, and then there's like a surveillance kind of a thing that is happening over them. So there are right now a lot of, see, there's no, this is not a one singular issue.
Hmm.
There are branches of issues that come out of it,
So
right?
that all so not only is there a clear blatant violation, but there are multiple violations.
Multiple violations
So
because the yeah,
I'm sorry, but like for example, uh, when, like, for example, the cops are not wearing their nameplates. Like it is very evident that, like, be it the Rapid Action Force, the
right,
CRPF, and the Delhi Police, none of them were wearing
right,
nameplates. There's been no justification given by the Delhi Police or the Ministry of Home to why
right,
that such an action. In fact, it was justified by the RAF, saying that it was too hot, and that
right,
there is dignity of name, that during action you don't want people, your name to fall and people to step on it.
right.
So I mean, what are the legalities of that?
I mean, see, it's just a blatant disregard of the due process. See, I'll tell you, whenever a police has to take any action,
Mhm.
it comes down to three things. It comes down to the legality
Mhm.
of it, right? It comes to the necessity of it, and it comes to the proportionality to it. Now, the legality, they say, comes from the section 163,
Mhm.
right? That they were in the gathering was not allowed. So they were supposed to take any action. That is what the legal ambit is, that they have to take action. But that action has to be necessary and proportional. And the when it comes to the name badges, when it comes to people in private uniforms, also beating up people in there were all sorts of due process that was completely disregarded. So there are the rules that the Delhi police has to follow. There are rules that the Delhi police has to follow, and these rules are not just these are not merely directionary. They have to be followed in its full extent. But my issue with this entire thing is that before we talk about what has to happen next, where is our honorable home minister, you
Absolutely.
know
So that is exactly
Where-
what my next. So I mean, clearly we've seen, like, I think over the course we have seen what violations have taken place,
right,
and I think my question also ultimately lies, where does the accountability lie? Does it lie with the honorable courts or the home minister, or both? Like, can also, to add, like, given that the home ministry has not even said a word about any of this, can the
correct.
courts even order the home ministry to take accountability into the matter?
See, the courts definitely can. The the issue is, that right now what is happening, and that's what the public discourse has also become. There are two sides, right? For example, when I say two sides, I'll keep going back and forth. When the violence happened, how do we get to know that so many protesters are beaten up, that their heads have opened? Official records wise, it is the Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital. It is Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital who said that there are hundred over 100 people that have been hit, that have been injured because of this. It is not. There is no official. The police has not said so. Even though it is the police's responsibility to issue an official number of people that have been injured. Police. What the police do is police gives a number of policemen that have been injured. 118.
Yes. So the official numbers given by the Delhi police, 118 officers have been injured. Now, in
Right.
terms of students being injured, the
Right.
CJP has given approximately 150 protesters were hospitalized. The Outlook
Correct.
magazine says that over 170 were injured, and the Wire claims that close to thousands were injured. But there is no independent verified count that exists. But all four of them given with an attribution, to say plainly that
Right.
nobody knows. The
Right.
strongest, the strongest, perhaps the strongest defense that the
Right.
Delhi police at the moment is justifying its force is that
Right.
they were attacked first, that there was the violence had broken out, that they were stone pelting. This is what
Right.
I want to play the the devil's advocate here.
Right.
To
No. No.
The Delhi police has said very clearly that the march was declared unlawful and prohibitory orders were in force, as we have discussed earlier. So
Right.
they welded the barricades, and then these welded barricades were breached by the protesters, thus
Hmm.
prompting us to take this decision because of the scale and crowd control of it. This is what is being said by
And
the Delhi police, by the commissioner, saying that okay,
it,
while there have been, there was very little cooperation from the protesters. Okay, while there have been okay few incidents that should not have, there was excessive force in few incidents,
yeah.
referencing ACP Lamba. Uh,
Yeah.
Barring that because it's given, it's such a spontaneous evolving this thing, one has to make a decision on this spot, and there were so many thousands of protesters, getting so close to the parliament, we had a duty to save we this was the best course of action we had to take. This is what the Delhi police justification is,
The
with
Delhi
with
police. Right. They have also. I think they had issued a statement that they had to use mild force. If this is mild force, I don't know what the actual force would be. Used by the Delhi police. See, it is an obviously very irresponsible statement to make. And now that the matter has reached the court and will be reaching the courts in different aspects, like we discussed, um, the questions that have to be raised are like there has to be a very independent investigation into it, and the material facts have to be dealt with as they are. The courts have simply told you that you need to follow procedure, right? The courts have told you that you follow procedure. To disperse people also you have to follow procedure. I may ask, they're saying that people were throwing the barricade inside. Did they provide any barricade maps? Did they issue any communication whatsoever that when they are going to take the action? That's the most important thing. The people who were gathered in Jantar Mantar. So what had happened was, to give a little context, on the day of the march, the government wasn't decided that they'll be talking with the CJP people. There'll be talks with the CJP people, and the CJP people made an official announcement that the protest is going to be delayed by 2 hours. Correct? Which I do think was a blunder to me. That should not have happened. What that did was, because of them delaying the 2 hours, there were already people who were ahead slightly, who were waiting for the march to start. Obviously, they're there. It's Delhi summers. They must have, I don't know what. Then they started proceeding towards the Sansad Marg. And when they start moving towards the Sansad Marg without any communication, without any measure taken to stop them, to make sure that they take the exits, to tell them where the exit is in the first place, they start beating these people up. And then when they start beating these people up, the news goes behind, people start coming piche se, and then they also start getting beaten up. They had welded and put barricades so that more people can't come in. Mind you, they knew the thousands of people who were already there and who were going to do their march. That is where the question lies. That they always knew that the this is going to be the number of people that are going to come in, and the responsibility of the courts of the police, sorry, as per the courts also, is to make sure that in such a crowd also people are able to protest. Why are we forgetting that in the first place?
Absolutely.
A police's duty is also to ensure that the constitutional right of a protester is maintained. If you have an order restricting people to not gather, right, you also have a duty that people, they are dispersed in a way where they can go and then they can again express their freedom and expression in their own ways. That expression can't happen if you just start locking them in and detaining them. And there was no protocol that was followed, absolutely no protocol that was followed. The women were being detained by male cops. We don't know the identity of the people who were just like coming in and started like hitting. I was there. There were people in civilian clothes who were throwing stones from the police's side as well. And it's very shameful. And actually, I've been that day I had to unfollow a lot of people on Instagram. Some of my very dear ones who were just like shamelessly posting videos of some singled out video of some guy throwing some stones at it. Doesn't matter. If I'm saying this, it's not like we don't have to hide from the fact that some stones may have been thrown. They were thrown, but who started it? You'll put people in a cage, and then you start hitting them. You start putting tear gas, and then this is not what you anticipate.
So you have essentially created, you have also created an environment for a stampede. If I'm
Exactly.
so, when you've created such an environment for a stampede, are there any laws against, like this is very clear, right? That you've literally, because people are running, they're dispersing everywhere, but they don't have anywhere to go. So you've
Right.
risked the lives of people, right?
Right. It's actually the laws are framed in such a way that they don't list as to what are the things that, oh, this a police person can't do. It's more of that when the police does these things, they have to be in the ambit of certain reasonableness. And that reasonableness has been explained by the courts, which I had also sort of like brought up in the beginning, that they have to be before the least, like I said, the least harmful method has to be preferred. And like coming to a point where you have to use a lathi, that has to happen after such a long time. That cannot happen at a nascent stage. What the police did, and I don't want to mince my word in this. They have manufactured this. They brought people in. They knew what was going to happen, and then when they start hitting people, some people started running. Some people started retaliating. Then they claim them as being a dangerous crowd, and then they use that to further just absolutely hurt them in ways in which they cannot do. As simple as that. Like there is no way to do so.
Now,
The
sorry. No, no, please finish the thing.
No, even I remember there's a case of the Delhi High Court of called PV Kapoor versus Union of India, right, where police had taken action against people who were protesting against the Mandal Commission, that anti-Mandal protests that were happening in Delhi. Even then, right? The court had said that without denying the stones that were thrown, a mere presence of any unlawful assembly, right? So this assembly, in police's terms only, it's an unlawful assembly, right? It is an unlawful assembly. And upon the failure of the police to disperse it, so first comes an assembly of people,
Mhm.
right, which have gathered as per the constitution. They have gathered to express their freedom of speech and expression. That gathering becomes unlawful because the magistrate issues an order saying that this is 163 has been imposed. Five or more people cannot be gathered. Now, after this, when people do gather, the police has to take action as per 148 of BNSS.
Mhm.
But 148 BNSS does not mean lathi charge or tear gas. It means uh, you have to take reasonable measures. What that reasonable measure is what has also been explained in the judgment that I'm just saying. It's saying that first you try to disperse people, but even in your failure to disperse, there is no way you can justify very serious or grave measures being taken. You have to exhaust all means before doing so. Measures were not exhausted. Not a single water cannon was shot. No shields were used. Nothing. They saw people. They got their orders from I don't know who, from where, and this is so they are claiming, right, that the magistrate has passed this order. Has that order been made public? No. And I hope these questions are raised in the court,
Absolutely.
because now what the court's role is. Obviously, accountability has to be asked with the union minister, the government, and all of that. And it's our duty actually to build that pressure on the government to tell us what is your basis of this. But the court's duty is to investigate in such a way where they use the CCTV footages. They ask them to give them the communication that they used. What are the due process that they have taken? Do they have any proof that they warned the protesters? Nothing of that sort. It, it's a very, I won't be an idiot to say this, that if it goes to the court and the court does order an independent inquiry in this, the Delhi police has is completely in the wrong, and the steps that they had taken is not in sync with any judgment, with any law, and it is completely unreasonable what they have done.
So,
And this is us talking from a very legal standpoint. Humanitarian standpoint, we all know what this government and the state is capable of doing now. It has gone beyond us.
because I think you've mentioned that the use of excessive force is evident. Now, I mean, there is a precedent here. I mean, this is Anita Thakur v. State of Jammu Kashmir 2016,
Right,
where there was like peaceful, like now peaceful is this judgment has basically said that peaceful assembly warrants no force at all. Number one. Now,
right,
supposedly a crowd turns violent. Just
right.
reasonable force is justified. Now,
Correct.
but in excess or continuing after the crowd has been dispersed or control has been regained, now that
Right.
violates human rights and human dignity. Now, the courts
Correct.
awarded the compensation to the petitioner who themselves had actually been violent and pelted stones. But because the police
Right.
response was so disproportionate, they were
Mm.
given compensation. Now, keeping this precedent in mind, does that
Right.
mean that the protesters that who have been severely injured have the right to claim
Right.
for compensation by the Delhi police?
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely, they do. And this is the very basis of also why the petitions are filed in the first place. The PILs have been filed in the courts in the first place. It is not just about putting some limelight on what the police has done. They have they have all the right, and a citizen, regardless of the police or not, if the state has taken any adverse measure against them, be it any department, where they have been harmed in a way that is not in sync with the constitution, they deserve a compensation. And the police has failed to do so. Even the judgment of Himmat Lal Shah versus Commissioner of Police. What does that say? That says that there is a right to the protesters to protest. Now, if they are protesting and you anticipate that the sort of it might become violent or it might affect the public disorder, it is not on the protesters. It is the police's duty to regulate the protest. Can the police tell us if they have taken any regulatory measures in this protest, or anybody who defends the actions taken by the police? In what way was it regulatory? Were they trying to regulate the protest? In fact, if they had opened the exit gates, the crowd would have scattered.
there
But
were
it's
there were
just
also reports like this was of course in the broad daylight of the 20th. The nation watched the horrific events that were taking place, but the following night, the night of the 21st as well, there was internet
right,
that was suspended across central Delhi, and there were
right,
reports of tear gas and lathi charge even in the night. But because of lack of, because the internet and all communication methods were suspended, there has been
right,
no concrete evidence per se, and we know that the unfortunate state of the media is that they refuse to cover it. So now that
right,
when what are the every time that the government or the police finds that there is certain inconvenience, they've gone ahead and cut internet or ways of
right,
communication.
right.
Is that in violation of certain rights, or does the Delhi police have discretionary powers to suspend internet on any modes of communication that way?
See, the Delhi police does have discretionary power. It is not actually the Delhi police. See, these things have to be ordered by the executive magistrate, right? When an executive magistrate passes an order for such any of these things, any restrictions for that matter, be it internet, be it any of those things. By the way, coming back to that, there is also a petition that was filed before the Delhi High Court with regards to the internet shutdown, but that has been withdrawn this morning. That has been withdrawn by the petitioners. The petitioner who had filed this said case, claiming that the internet shutdown was not allowed or should not have taken place the way it did, they have withdrawn the petition. Now, now you may call it as being an after effect of the protest being called off. I don't know what the situation is. But coming back to the order, so whenever a magistrate has has passed the order, it is on the basis of that the police takes an action. But that order must have grounds. That order must be a detailed order. That order must have grounds. We don't have the order. That order has not been communicated to us. And it is an arbitrary internet shutdown. And Kishan, what the most unfortunate part in all of this is that it has now we see so much talk about it. Now we see so much like anger against it. Now we are the fact that both of us are sitting here and questioning how police should act or not has happened because the Indian middle class has been affected, right?
Absolutely.
These things have been happening in Manipur, Kashmir, Nagaland, with the tribals, with Muslims, left, right, and center by this government, right? Left, right, and center, and illegal, arbitrary. You may call it anything, but it has been used in the past, but only when it affected such an like the
Happened in
urban
the
middle
streets
class
of our
majority.
national capital. It's tough to
Yeah,
cover that. I'm like
because the
I'm pretty sure that it's I mean with the very same incident. This goes to show as well. Like all of us saw what happened on the streets of the national capital. All of us saw it was every phone, every person becomes a journalist with a smartphone because they're able to record it. It's just say,
right,
look, this has happened, and because
right,
we've known that the mainstream media is not going to cover it. But
right,
at the same time when the protests happen in Patna,
right.
even severe force was used there, but we have no
Yeah,
reports of it. It's only after weeks, oh, someone used an AK-47, now it's coming out.
yeah,
I mean, the bias is very this thing, like where we, let alone like, okay, because there is so much focus because it's happened in Delhi, we don't care about what
correct.
happened in Patna. People have been close to 70 people have been detained in Patna. Even more than, again, 70 people have been, protesters have been detained in West Bengal, and both of them are
Right.
NDA ruled states. Like, of course, there was so much uproar when people were detained in Delhi and Bombay. They're like immediately, oh please, you know,
Exactly. And I remember. So me and my close school friends had also gone for this. And the day it happened, that night we were all discussing that, oh, what has just happened, right? Like, what have we witnessed? And this is what we discussed, right? That, see, back of the mind, how much ever we are aware and whatever we want to talk about and whatever our views might be, we never thought that such a thing could happen to us. Like, we always have that, oh, we are safe at least. Like, this is not going to happen to us. By us, I mean like a regular urban middle class
any
Indian.
famous metro. Like, you know that this is
Yeah,
not going to happen in Bengaluru, Mumbai.
yeah,
There will
same.
be national
Yeah,
uproar.
right. But when it happened, and then you start like, and this is also something that all of us now have to collectively make sure that doesn't happen again, because it's like, if we hear a very isolated incident of a police brutality in, let's say, Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand, and if you're silent about it, then there's no point in like talking about it when we get beat up, right?
Absolutely.
So now we have to, and that has been a good thing that this protest has done. Whatever it might have been called off, now we have to see where it goes with the court. Contrary to popular beliefs, I do think that something good can come from the courts,
Mhm.
right? Will at least enough for us to make it an issue and then ask the government for accountability for sure. But I do think that the good thing that this protest has done is that it has removed the fear that the regular people had, the so-called silent majority, who always thought that, okay, like sometimes they're like not as comfortable with things, but then they're like, we don't want to talk about it, we don't want to get into trouble, we can't talk about it. But now they didn't have any option but to talk about it, and now
I mean,
everybody is talking
what was
about
the
it.
worst that could happen? Beat us. Now that's done.
Beat us.
Next.
Now that is done. Now you beat us. Kuch ab bacha nahi hai. You're detaining people. Then what else is left? Now we'll talk about it, and now people will continue to talk about it. See this. They will obviously now use all their machinery to flip the script around. We know what they do.
Mhm.
No, and we- anything with Pakistan can also happen anytime. So there are things that we have to be careful of. But one thing is for sure, that people now have gotten the courage at least to speak against them. And yeah, like I feel one can only be hopeful when it comes to these things. And
Now,
such a thing happens. Yeah,
you speak of hope, and having said that, where does
yeah,
judicial activism come into, with regard to the current situation? Because the courts are often, I mean, earlier,
right,
a few years back, the courts were accused of judicial activism, overreaching their authority into
right,
things where the courts proactively took up issues to
correct,
ensure this thing. When such a visible crisis has happened,
right.
irrespective of, you can be from the police, you can be from the protesters, there is a very evident crisis. Where does judicial activism come in here?
See, it actually troubles me a little by saying this, but I don't think I've personally seen that side of the judiciary in the last few years at least. And when I say that, I don't mean specific judges. I don't mean any of that sort. The entire legal environment, including lawyers, right? Including lawyers, I don't think we have done enough, or we are doing enough, right? Because the concern of the legal department and everything. See, if I have to be very honest, urgent hearings matter getting listed prior to like others, and whatever treatment that you may get in court, it has to do a lot with your money, with your position, and all of those things, right? And when such a thing comes, when a certain section of the society genuinely feels that they don't have anybody to look up to, They obviously can't look up to this government who's just busy like backstabbing them one one move after the other. They only have the judiciary to look up to. And I just want to say that now is the time for both side of the judiciary, the lawyers as well as our honorable judges, to exercise their power to its full extent. The powers are not being used to their full extent. If I'm being blunt, they have to be used to their full extent. They have to ensure that that the law is read as it's keeping its purpose in mind, and not a plain reading of the law is just like a technical reading of the law is not being made.
Mhm.
In such a situations, one must also have to look at it from a very purpose point of view, you know, and that is where the constitution also becomes very relevant. And I feel it's for everybody to read, and it's for everybody to understand, to interpret, to talk about it. I feel there's not enough discourse in the general public. When a government, they do mandir, and behind that they just like they pass laws and laws and laws. Is there any discussion around that? There is no discussion around that. Whatever ultimately is decided, if any particular law is as per the constitution or not, is it legal, it is not legal, that is there for courts to decide, yes. But where is the public discourse around those things? That also has to come up. You also have to start questioning those things. And now, and this again gets back, this again is linked back to the media. Earlier, suo moto cognizance, where courts are directly sort of taking cognizance of something and picking it up and doing it. Media had a the biggest role to play in it. The
Absolutely.
media will report, then it will become a public thing, then the court will pick it up. The media, we all know what it's busy doing. It has nothing to. This protest, for example, had it not been for the independent journalists, had it not been for the content creators, uh, this would not have been what it was. And had it not been for social media, if such a thing had happened, if thank God that this government is at a time where we have the option of social media. Imagine such a government being in a place, or being in a time where they have full control over the media, but the general public does not have any other access to information. What do you think would have happened then? And the governments have, and it's just scary to imagine that they don't give a shit about
Yeah,
your well-being.
I think we don't have to look too back. I don't think we have to look. We have to go back so much in time. Like when a lot of things were happening in Kashmir, nobody knew what was happening in Kashmir. Media would refuse to cover what was happening in Kashmir, and the rest of us
Right.
were on absolute vibes on what we
Yeah,
feel we are going to support or going to be against. Nobody knows
exactly.
what happened on the ground except Kashmiris, for that matter.
Right.
So
Right. And now we are all Kashmiris.
so much it's happened. Manipur, no idea what's happening in Manipur. But today, when Mirabai lifts that, gets that gold, yeah, we are proud of you.
Proud of, yeah. This is, and now we're all, and everybody who went to that protest, they all felt like Kashmiris, if I'm being honest. For a little bit, they did have that feeling that they are like resisting something that is like so larger than them,
Hmm.
but they have to do it. They don't have any other option. And yeah, I think that is what the emotion the people had when they came. But what happened was just unfortunate.
No, I mean, now that we have discussed in our textbooks,
Right.
as a student of political science history, we often read that the courts are the guardians of the constitution, that there is
Correct.
no one, they are at the gates of protection of the constitution. Now, I of course you can based on how you would want to answer this question, or not. So you have laws like the UAPA today, like
Sorry.
with the very basis of, we have laws of like the UAPA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when we, the very basis of the law is that you're innocent until proven guilty,
Right,
correct? But when laws like UAPA is applied, where one does not get a trial for as long as the government wishes, where
right,
one is immediately, well, the law automatically becomes you're guilty until proven innocent.
right.
Isn't it the very law, isn't it against the ethos of the constitution, and doesn't it also fall the responsibility fall upon the courts to declare it null and void?
See, I feel this is a question that has a very it it links to a very very broad question as well, right? Which is that when we say that such a law is there which is contradictory to what the true ethos of the constitution is, then I feel everybody should reflect that our laws, like, what do we think is the consensus? Are laws there to help people out, or are the laws there to help the state out? And I feel that the tussle is there, that there are laws that don't favor the people. They favor the state. And the constitution, the law, everything is read and interpreted in a way as for those laws to help the state, right? And there are definitely also laws that help the people. But at the end of the day, when you see the your state behaving in such a way, and then when you see that laws are being passed in which they end up helping them or aiding them to further whatever agenda they have, it's sickening. And all I can say at this moment is that yes, there are laws that inherently go against this very popular interpretation of the constitution, but they are also interpreted in a way to help the state out. And I feel there are those gaps, and those gaps will always be there in law. But but those gaps are filled by the imagination of the collective. Why are certain laws passed during certain governments, and why are certain laws passed during certain governments? It all depends on the collective and what that government represents. If the government will represent a certain side of the spectrum, these gaps will be bridged as per that, and then the courts will interpret it as per that. But if that's not the case,
That is actually my
if there
question.
will be
Because that is actually my question. Is
right,
that now, of course, governments are democratically elected. They are the will of the people. Like that is what the
right,
people are feeling at the moment, and that is why
yeah,
that a certain government is in power. Now the judiciary is not an elected body. It is supposed to be the symbol of continuity, symbol of
right,
justice, and as the guardians of the constitution. So there
right,
is a reason why we don't elect judges, for that matter.
right,
So
right,
because when that continuity is expected, so it doesn't matter what government is in power, what their policy is in power. Inherently, that there is a principle on which there's a principle foundation on which your justice system should work. And so when if it's a situation like that arrives, where you have a really populist government for a really long
right,
time in power, uh, it
correct,
it can't. So ideal in an ideal society, it shouldn't influence the justice system.
correct. It should not. And then the ex chief justices also should not become Rajya Sabha MPs after their retirement. But sadly, we don't live in that side of a country. But like, if I have to take the example of farm laws, for example, the farm laws that had been passed by the government, I don't think that they would have been discarded if the court had intervened. I personally don't think so.
Hmm.
They were discarded because the people came and then they said that this is not what we want and this is not what we think is there. And the government, at the end of the day, the government has enough room to interpret the constitution and take out 10 laws, and then the courts may or may not be forced to sort of interpret them in a certain way. But at the end of the day, I feel it's very the problem with the judiciary is it's that it has kept itself really away from criticism,
Mhm.
which is not a healthy way for any state to function. Obviously, like the judiciary, as we know, it has certain very other problems as well. Like, for instance, like we still have a very colonial legacy to a lot of practices that do happen in like daily court practices. But even after the even removing all of that, um, blindly trusting your justice system is also healthy, because then you sort of you look into it with hope and all of that. But it can also be a little problematic if you don't criticize it within your given rights,
Mhm.
because it is very important, because you have to ask judges these questions as well.
Mhm.
For example, if a judge after retirement or post retirement takes a Rajya Sabha membership, goes to an RSS event, um, is very famously linked with an RSS event, has a history with RSS, um, and there are current judges who do qualify that example. But so then it's your job to also ask them, because at the end of the day, in a system which is dependent on checks and balances, India is dependent on checks and balances. But sometimes there is no other side checking you to do certain things. If I have to just like put it and in the best and the safest safest way I could, and that is where the people come. And we will have to come to the streets whenever we feel that system is eroding.
Well, uh, I mean, as an advocate, as a person who's and when there is a general, let's say, layman like me and many others,
Right,
when there is a very clear feeling that the courts are not fair, or somehow the courts seem to be compromised. As a
right.
lawyer, what does that make you feel?
It makes me question my decision. It makes me question my training that I've had for 5 years, the stuff that I have been fed with, the things that I've been like conditioned with, and the way I look at judiciary. And being a lawyer, being part of the system, you start understanding a lot of loopholes. You start understanding that, oh, these are not how things actually work. But imagine a layman, right? Like I understand where you're coming from, because for me it might not be as shocking,
Hmm.
because I have in my 5 years or then whatever years I've like practiced or I am practicing, I do see this side of judiciary, or such a human side of the judiciary, where um, all of these principles are sometimes sort of set aside. But for a layman, they don't look at judiciary like that. They look at it as an institute that's genuinely free, right? That's genuinely is able to do stuff as they want to.
Hmm.
But I would just like to say, and I would like to conclude this question by saying that sometimes there are a lot of all kinds of pressures,
Hmm.
and once you give your government certain institutions,
Hmm.
and you give them the ability to run free with them, be it any department, ED, whatever. I don't want to get into the specifics of it. But when you give a government such a free hand, and a government has such a free hand, and the public is busy discussing Hindu Musalman and Ram Mandir and India Pakistan and Shubman Gill and Virat Kohli and all these people, then you will have a government which will always use the agencies to their benefit. And I have no shame in saying that BJP has used it. BJP
Hmm.
has used it. BJP has used it to break parties, break oppositions, buy people, and they have made a joke of your vote. If I'm being very honest, whatever last few elections have been, your vote is a joke. It is not as effective today as we think of it to be, because, like I said, and it's systematic. It's been going for so long, and they know the game. They know how to distract people while they keep pushing in all these real things. And yeah, let's. I just all we can hope is to slowly see people realizing this, and then doing their own bit.
Mhm. Now, I mean, just to, I think we've covered a lot, but I have this question where, like, is there, for example, if there's any ruling by the High Court or any ruling by the Supreme Court,
Right.
is there room for interpretation of what that might mean? Like, and I ask this with respect, with the very shocking removal of Sonam Wangchuk from the site of protest.
Right.
That was it was a very disturbing and quite shameful to see what had happened. But the Delhi
Right.
police justified, saying this is what the High Court asked us to do. We are following the law. Now, reading, when you read the verdict, I'm like, wait a minute, but
Right.
nothing like that. What happened was mentioned, but then it
Yeah.
was justified that this is the interpretation of the judgment. Is there room for
Right.
interpretation like that?
See, when usually when there's a clear direction, it is very specific, and there is not supposed to be any room for interpretation. Of course, if somebody does end up like interpreting it in a different way and then they start doing their own thing, then you can obviously go back to the court saying that this is happening. That is what happened in this case as well, by the way. The Sonam Wangchuk being lifted and taken away. When it reached again to the High Court said, okay, nothing doing. Now we want Delhi police to preserve the CCTV footages. That is what the direction is. The current direction passed by the Delhi High Court is for the Delhi police to preserve the CCTV footages of that incident and in general, especially till all these cases are also pending.
Mhm.
And it's more than I feel what is happening now with the Delhi police and the government as well, that have this, I don't know what kind of a overconfidence that they have, that le- which led them to also lathi charge these people, and which will now also lead them to interpret the court however they want to. Now, where that goes, how the court deals with it, with what strictness the court deals with it, is what all of us have to see. And I through this I urge everybody to not take uh, Delhi High Court or Supreme High Court orders and all of that. When you read any news, it is your duty to sort of just take 5 minutes, just analyze what the court has said. If you don't know what it means, ask a person who may help you. It's very important to be aware of the latest developments, because what happens sometimes is that court may say one thing, the media will pick that one line, and then it'll just become a completely different thing. So it's also very important for us to like regularly see it. But yeah, like you said, there's no supposed to be a room for interpretation, but people do end up sometimes interpreting it in a way they are not supposed to do it. And then that is when the courts again come into the picture. And yeah, I think we can be hopeful, like I said, that the courts will take and will do whatever they're supposed to do.
Well, I think in the over the course of this very detailed, very nuanced conversation. It was. I think we have gone into great depths about the role of the judiciary, the actions of the Delhi police on what has happened on July 20th, like the way they have behaved, and what are it's very clear. Like tomorrow, like whenever anyone sees this, anything that has happened to them unlawfully, perhaps I really hope can get that remedy possible. I really hope that justice is delivered. uh,
Right.
well, tomorrow the Supreme Court's going to hear two petitions, if I'm not wrong, regarding this case.
There are multiple petitions,
Mhm.
because multiple people have, in their own way, they have made their own cases as to what, like how they were affected with the police. But yes, the two main petitions are one that arise from the Delhi Jantar Mantar violence,
Mhm.
and the other that arise from the Bihar AK-47
Correct.
petition. So these two are the main petitions, you can say, in a way.
So now, I mean, now that I mean, this week, I think all of us are going to be looking at our courts, the way they act, because it's going to set a precedent. Today, I think the
Right.
youth of the country has set a precedent, saying that, you know
Exactly.
what, if you're going to mess up, you have to take accountability. We saw thousands and thousands and thousands of students and very evidently disgruntled youth and middle class with this get come onto the street, not only in Delhi but
Right.
everywhere. So I think now the ball is in the court, quite literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now,
And I would like to say one thing to
mhm,
end it all.
yeah,
I genuinely believe so. I've been like, obviously, we have all read this, that courage is indeed contagious.
mhm.
And people must realize that if the general public will get courageous, all sometimes the agents of your state, be it some policemen, some judges, some lawyers, whatever, they all will have that courage. And then everybody will start contributing in their own way and start raising voice against a force which we all know is extremely invincible. So it's very important to have that courage and also to spread that courage as much as you can.
I don't think there was a better note we can end this on. Thank you very much, Kamaksh. I think that has
Thank you,
been
KB.
a wonderful
Yeah,
discussion. I think we've covered some great nuances, and I really hope that there is a lot of faith. There's a lot of faith in a lot of people in the courts of this country, from the lowest of court to the Supreme Court of this land.
yeah,
People, whatever might be the political situation, in the end of the day, people do look to the courts for justice,
correct,
and that's a culture that we have had over the years, and I don't think, and that can only strengthen. And I think you've given us a beautiful thing. One, courage is contagious. Absolutely right. So it's the only
correct.
way this our institutions also get stronger. Now, well, on that note, thank you very much once again. Uh,
Thank you, Kishan, for having me. Thank
and
you.
of course, thank you to our director, Ashok, who's behind the cam, making sure all of this runs smooth. Uh, well, we'll see you in the next episode. Uh, stay tuned, because you always have a second opinion, because it's always worthy to take another look. Thank you.
Absolutely.